Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1154B, and today's date is December 16th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Obama and the Elite Will Try to Bring War Upon the People. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, at this point, we realize that the establishment, the elite, they are going after any type of news that doesn't fit the narrative. And they're calling it fake news, which most likely is the truth. And we can see right now they are pushing full censorship. That's their plan. And we see one by one all the mainstream media outlets, they're announcing they're going to join Facebook and their fight against fraudulent stories. And they're going to join and they're going to help out. We see the Associated Press says they're going to join the fight. And as part of its broader fact-checking efforts, the Associated Press announced Thursday that it will work with Facebook to help identify and debunk trending news stories being shared online that are false. Now, the question that we continually ask is, how are they fact-checking? Because we know in the past, things that we all reported on, the alternative media, the majority of it turned out to be true. And we can see right now, they want to stop this. And we know that Facebook, they've already started this with their algorithm, with people checking the news and going to Snopes, PolitiFact, and many others. And the Washington Post, well, something very interesting about all of this and all these fact checkers, because the Washington Post leaves out of its report that the independent fact checker, the Poynter International Fact Checking Network, well, they receive funding from the U.S. government funding group, the National Endowment for Democracy, NED. Robert Perry notes that the CIA Director William Casey helped establish NED as a U.S. government-funded organization to support groups inside foreign countries that would engage in propaganda, which is fake news, and political action that the CIA had historically organized and paid for covertly, including regime change. At the time of the group's creation, Casey ensured that the language bearing the participation of the CIA personnel was struck from the bill. The Poynter Group lists 8 funding sources on its website. Apart from the U.S. government-funded propaganda, election hacking, and regime change outlet NED, it is funded by the Reporters Lab of Duke University, an institution founded and still largely funded by the endowment from tobacco and electric power industrialist James Buchanan Duke. The main staff of the Reporters Lab have worked for businesses or government-funded U.S. outlets, the Washington Post, PolitiFact, Tampa Bay Times, NPR, which is funded by both the U.S. government and U.S. corporations. And we can see right now, the fact checkers, they are CIA operations. They are funded by the government. So we can see at this point, that's who's going to be checking the facts. Just like we thought was going to happen. That they're going to be in there and they're going to be spinning everything to fit their narrative. And people say, well, what do you mean? How could this be? And we've used examples before. Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. Going back to 2011, the United States does not give weapons to moderate rebels. Well, that turned out to be false. Iraq didn't have weapons of mass destruction. The Affordable Care Act, you can keep your doctor, premiums aren't going to go up. Subprime securities, the AAA. I mean, think about all the fake news that's coming out. Just recently, Russia is hacking the election system, but we can't give you any evidence. So we can see at this point that they are trying to censor the truth. They want to take back the narrative. And they have money behind this. They have a huge amount of funds where they can get a team together and they can try to destroy the smaller alternative media. And what the alternative media needs from the people is to back up the alternative media, not with money, but with telling more and more people to say, listen, you think this story is true, but what about this fact? What about that fact? Why is there no evidence for the Russian hacking? What are they afraid of? Shouldn't they produce it? Shouldn't they declassify it so the American people will believe what they're saying? How come there weren't weapons of mass destruction? They told us they were. Do you know Obama lied when he said you can keep your doctor? Those type of things. And we need to tell more and more people. People need to go and view the alternative media to listen and make up their own mind. I'm not saying we have to convince them completely, but they should have both arguments. And then they should do research and say, you know something? This makes a little bit more sense than what the corporate media is telling me. Let me do a little bit of research. Let me look into this. And this is what we all need to do to push back on the elite, because they're coming out of the gates pushing really hard right now. And they have not stopped with the Russian hacking. They've taken it to the next level. They said that Putin is involved in this. We discussed this yesterday. And Putin came out and said, listen, this is getting ridiculous already. Shut up or show the proof. Show how we did it. Show the link. And if you can't, don't mention it again. And I agree with him. Because you know what they have? They have nothing. Because believe me, if they had evidence and they had all this information, they would have been out there like crazy showing this evidence. This reminds me of Ukraine, Syria, Libya, where they were saying that Russians were invaded in Ukraine. They're building up troops. Look at the satellite imagery. They gave us the black and white 1970 satellite photos. They photoshopped it up. They show blurred images. They circled them. And they were all debunked. And they never could show proof. It was all propaganda, and that's what we're being fed right now. All propaganda. So what is Obama going to do? What is the elite going to do? They're taking this to the next level. They are going to exact their revenge against Russia. They are going to cyber attack Russia. Remember before the election, they said they were going to do this. Just in case, if Trump pulled ahead in the popular vote, because that's what they can control, they were going to use a cyber attack, blame it on Russia, retaliate, and start a war at that point. But the opposite happened. Their manipulation was working. Hillary was getting the popular vote. But that damn electoral college, that's what screwed them up. Now, all bets are off. Their backs are against the wall. They're going full throttle, full steam ahead, and they need to start a war now. So in the coming days, we most likely will see this. Now, very interestingly, we know that DHS was trying to hack into some systems in Georgia, and now 3 other states are coming out saying, yeah, we're seeing the same exact thing. I'm wondering if DHS was supposed to plant something in the systems to have all of this blamed on Russia, just in case. And they were caught trying to, get into the systems. And now, right now, they're just like trying to cover all of this up, and they don't have the evidence that they thought they were going to have, but they're continuing on with the story. Now, very interestingly, the Washington Post, the newspaper that reports fake news, is out there saying that the FBI, James B. Comey, and the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, they have now backed the CIA assessment that Russia intervened in the 2016 election, which helped Donald Trump get elected. Now, of course, this is a complete U-turn from the FBI and the Director of National Intelligence. Because before, they said there was no evidence. So it looks like either they have something on them, and they said, listen, you better do this, or else we're going to release this. And they said, okay, we will. And now it looks like they're falling in line, if this story's true, which most likely it isn't, but we can see right now they're trying to keep all of this together and have everyone on the same page, because it looks like at this point in time, they're going to be pushing war if they don't get their way, because we know that December 19th is coming up. It's Monday. And if all that goes bad, they're not going to let up. They're going to push their agenda forward. No matter which way we look at it, we're ending up in a war. We're ending up in a collapse. They will never let this go. They will not give up their authority. Why won't they give up their authority? Why won't they give up their control? Because once they do, guess what? They're going to be brought up on charges for corruption, treason, and anything else you can think of. It's all going to come out. And most of them are going to go to jail. They know this. They can never give up their control. They rather have a war, they rather have millions of people die than face a trial and give up control. So at this point, we're going to be heading towards this war with this collapse. Now, Obama, he might be guilty of a war crime, because it seems he might have violated U.S. Code 2388. In Obama's final address to America's armed forces, he decided to backstab Trump, and he said, which is in direct violation of U.S. Code Section 2388, dealing with activities affecting the armed forces during war, Obama encouraged troops to disobey Trump, and the statute in question deals with military treason. Section A, whoever, when the United States is at war, willfully makes or conveys false reports or false statements with intent to interfere with the operation or success of the military or naval forces of the United States, or to promote the success of its enemies, or whoever, when the United States is at war, willfully causes or attempts to cause insubordination, disloyalty, mutiny, or refusal of duty in the military or naval forces of the United States, or willfully obstructs the recruiting or enlistment services of the United States to the injury of the service or the United States, or attempts to do so, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. So he could be in violation, because he did say, and he encouraged the troops to disobey Trump. And we can see right now, this is part of their plan. The elite, they never expected this to happen. This is not part of their agenda. And this is why they're trying to take control back. Because we see they will never give up control. And they will fight to the bitter end. Now, out in Russia, we see Putin is trying to make deals with Abe. He's the Prime Minister of Japan. They wrapped up a 2-day talk, and they talked about numerous economic deals, the Kuril Islands, and Putin is trying to have peace in the region. Putin understands what these elite are up to. He realizes that they're going to start war. And if you notice, throughout time since we've been reporting on all of this, Putin has been trying to calm down the situation. I mean, he could have let war go a long time ago. He could have had it in 2013 in Syria, could have had it in 2014 in Ukraine, could have had it in 2015 in Syria, but he didn't. So we can see right now who was pushing for war? The elite, the United States government, and they're still doing it. Out in the South China Sea, and this is coming from officials in the U.S., they're anonymous right now, and they're saying that unmanned vehicles, they were seized unlawfully by China. And they're saying that the UUV was lawfully conducting a military survey in the waters of the South China Sea. It's a sovereign immune vessel, clearly marked in English not to be removed from the water, and it was the U.S. property. Well, if it was spying on China, guess what? The United States is in violation. How do we know that they are telling the truth? Most likely, they are not. What really was that doing in that area? And the Pentagon came out and said the seizure is very serious. They've taken U.S. military property. Now, are they nervous that China's going to find out what this was really doing and report it? And we can see that they're saying that this is highly escalatory, and it is hard to see how Beijing will justify it legally. What are they doing here? They are pushing war. Did the U.S. deliberately do this? It's starting to look like this, because look what they're doing with Russia. We know they're bringing in China because they had the encirclement with missiles in each one of the countries, Vietnam, Philippines. Well, Philippines right now, they're losing. Australia, and they encircled China. We see in Eastern Europe, they moved all military assets. Everything's pointing towards Russia. The players are the same. They're preparing for war. They're trying to provoke these countries into doing something. And they're purposely going to do stunts like this. We see it right now. It's being played out right in front of us. And we've been talking about this for a very long time. And here we are today. And everything is building. We see the U.S. right now, well, they have completely lost control of Libya right now. The Tobruk-based parliament is going to be offering a new roadmap on political settlement. And we have to remember, the UN-backed Presidential Council moved into the Libyan capital on March 2016 after the U.S., created this government that the people really didn't want. And we see the Tobruk-based parliament, well, they refuse to recognize the authority of the government of national accord. And right now, it looks like the people of Libya are about to take back their country. And we'll have to see how this plays out. And what we're seeing right now is that throughout the Middle East, in Syria, in Iraq, the U.S. is losing control, which means the petrodollar is doomed. And we've talked about this for quite a while. And here we are once again today, seeing it played out right in front of our eyes. We see out in Syria, the Kurds and the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is really the moderate rebels, the terrorists, they've moved into Raqqa. And of course, what they're trying to do is carve out an area. They're still not giving up. They're going to go to the bitter end until war has begun. We see that the United States government, central bankers, and their terrorist groups, they're in Palmyra right now. We see the Syrian army, the 800th Regiment of the Republican Guard Paratrooper Division. Well, they just deployed, and they are parachuting into Palmyra right now. And we can see right now that the U.S. is saying they're hitting the Islamic State in this area. Most likely they're giving them air coverage right now. We see the Aleppo evacuation. Well, that has been stalled right now because the terrorists, well, they violated the agreement once again. According to informed sources, the terrorist forces breached the deal reached earlier with the Syrian government by not releasing military and civilian detainees before their departure. Rather, tried to smuggle them out in the green buses. And we see right now that these are terrorists. And of course, I know the U.S. government is out there saying that Syria and Russia, they were too hard on the terrorists. They're called terrorists. Look what these terrorist people, look what they've done to the people in Syria. They tortured them. They beheaded them. They used chlorine gas on them. You can't go easy on terrorists. But of course, what they're really saying, translation, is that you destroyed our paid mercenary army. And now our army is nothing. We have nothing left here. And it's just not fair. Now, the Council of Foreign Relations, they had a meeting and they said there's a serious military confrontation coming in 2017. And they said it's going to be between Russia and NATO. And we see right now that they're already preparing for this war. They're already saying there's going to be a military conflict between Russia and a NATO member nation, and war will break out. This was their plan from the beginning. And we can see right now, all bets are off. The elite are going for broke. They are going to start this war no matter what. Unless something magically happens, which I hope it does. But what they're going to do at this point is they're going to start the war no matter what. They have no other options left. So everyone needs to be prepared for the following. We will see an event. Most likely, you will see the power infrastructure, the financial institutions, most likely they will be hit by a cyber attack. It will be blamed on Russia. The U.S. will counter. The cyber war will morph into a physical war. They will say the economy is collapsing because of what Russia did. China will then be involved somehow, some way, most likely in the South China Sea. They will report that North Korea tried to fire a nuclear missile at us. They might even say that one detonated over the United States, causing an EMP effect. We can see right now that they are prepared and ready for this. The war is not going to cover up or stop the collapse. It's just going to cover it up. And it's going to make it very easy for them to explain away why all of this is happening. It's still going to be horrific here in this country because they're going to tell you we're not getting any deliveries. We don't have fuel. Everyone is on their own. You can't get your money because of Russia, because of China. We're at war. You need to sacrifice. The draft will be implemented. We are headed in this direction. And hopefully, like Bix Weir says, where we have good guys and bad guys, hopefully the good guys, they're able to stop this before it goes any further. Will they be able to stop the collapse? No. But hopefully maybe they can stop the war. Maybe all of us together, we can all do our part by telling people what the truth is. Just to listen. Be objective. Remember, your mind is like a parachute. If it's not open, it doesn't work. And people who just believe completely into the corporate media and don't question anything, we need them to see the light. We need them to say, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. What are they really telling me? Have questions. Do research. Don't depend on what the government and what the corporate media is telling us. We need to think on our own. We don't need the government to think for us. And this is what we all need to do. We need to start spreading the word. We need to start telling people before it's too late. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.